Have you ever looked at someone, maybe a friend, a colleague, even a partner, and thought, they seem fine, but something in your gut whispered, they're not? The truth is, some of the people who laugh the loudest are carrying the heaviest pain. They show up, they smile, they crack jokes, they say, I'm good. But inside, they're exhausted, numb, sometimes even barely holding it together. In a world where we've all become experts at performing okay, we've lost touch with what it means to truly see each other. Today, I want to talk about what's hiding beneath the surface. The silent battles people fight, the strength it takes to pretend, and how we can become the kind of person someone doesn't have to pretend around anymore. Because it's not always the broken who show it, it's the brave who hide it best. We've all heard the phrase, check on your strong friends, but most of us still wait for obvious signs, tears, withdrawal, breakdowns, to register that someone's in pain. The truth is, some of the most hurting people are the best performers. They smile when it's killing them inside. They say, I'm fine, not because they are, but because they don't feel safe enough or seen enough to say anything else. That's why the smile can be so deceptive. It's not always a sign of happiness. Often it's armor. In relationships, friendships, even casual conversations, we tend to take people at face value. If they don't bring up a problem, we assume there isn't one. We live in a fast-paced world where everyone is expected to cope, to keep up, to not be the one who slows the group down. So, when someone's in pain, the pressure to conceal it is immense. Vulnerability feels like a risk, and silence becomes survival. But if you're someone who truly wants to connect, deeply connect, you have to start listening beyond words. You have to tune into energy, to subtle shifts in tone, to the pauses between sentences. Maybe their laughter sounds a little hollow. Maybe their eyes look a little tired, even when they're smiling. Maybe they cancel plans more often, or they show up but feel a little distant, even when they're talking. These aren't glaring red flags, but they are signs. The challenge is, we live in a culture that praises emotional independence and resilience, but often ignores emotional honesty. We've romanticized the idea of being unbothered, of being low maintenance, of not needing help. So people learn to bury things. They minimize their feelings before anyone else can. And eventually, they become experts at performing normalcy, even while they're breaking on the inside. The people who seem like they have it all together often feel like they're not allowed to fall apart. Maybe they're the ones others depend on. Maybe they've been told their problems aren't serious enough. Maybe they've opened up in the past and were dismissed. Over time, it becomes easier to pretend, to deflect with humor, to stay busy, to become invisible in plain sight. So what can you do? First, slow down. Be present. Don't just ask, how are you? And move on. Look someone in the eye. Ask twice if you need to. Create a space where someone feels like they don't have to be anything other than what they truly are in that moment. Sometimes that looks like checking in even when there's no crisis. Sometimes that means sitting in silence without needing to fix anything. Presence is powerful. It tells someone, I see you, not just your mask. It's not about prying or forcing people to open up. It's about being consistent enough, caring enough, and patient enough that when they do need someone, they know they won't be met with judgment or impatience. When people feel emotionally safe, they start to drop the performance. But that kind of safety isn't built in one moment. It's built over time through little acts of real attentiveness. If you want to build meaningful relationships, this is where it starts, seeing the difference between someone acting fine and actually being fine. Because the ones who carry the most pain rarely ask for help. They just hope someone will notice without being told. And maybe, in being that kind of person for someone else, you give them the permission to stop pretending for a while. Pain doesn't always announce itself in dramatic ways. It doesn't always come with tears, breakdowns, or desperate phone calls. More often than not, it comes in silence. It shows up in the small pauses before someone answers, in the subtle way their energy shifts when they think no one's watching, in the way they keep busy so they don't have to feel. We miss a lot of people's struggles, not because we're unkind, but because we're trained to look for loud signals and forget that suffering can be quiet. We live in a culture that values strength, resilience, and independence. From a young age, we're told to toughen up, push through, stay strong. Over time, people learn how to present the version of themselves that the world finds easiest to accept. That version is functional, composed, and fine. It shows up to work, answers texts, makes jokes, and doesn't ask for too much. But underneath that, there's often something deeper going on. Something they've learned to keep private because the world hasn't always been gentle with their honesty. The danger in this is that we start assuming that if someone hasn't said they're struggling, they must not be. If they haven't broken down, they must be okay. But people have different ways of coping. Some become hyper-productive. Others become overly cheerful. Some become the helper, always showing up for everyone else so no one will ask how they're doing. These behaviors aren't always rooted in wellness. They're sometimes just a cover, a distraction, a shield. That's why it's so important to go deeper with the people in our lives. A surface level, "How are you?" isn't always enough. Sometimes you have to ask twice. Sometimes you have to sit with someone long enough for their guard to come down naturally. And sometimes you have to notice the subtle shifts, someone withdrawing slightly, someone laughing but not really meaning it, someone who used to share a lot becoming quieter. Pain doesn't always show up as something dramatic because people are scared of being judged or being a burden. They've had moments where vulnerability didn't lead to support. It led to silence or awkwardness or being told to stay positive. So now they keep it in. They hide the messy parts. They act normal because they don't feel safe showing you anything else. And the tragedy is that the world sees the act and assumes it's the truth. What this means is that if we want to be better friends, partners, family members, we have to be better observers. Not in a suspicious or intrusive way, but in a way that says, "I'm paying attention. I notice you." Being emotionally available isn't just about being there during the obvious breakdowns. It's about being present in the everyday moments where someone might need a little more love than they're letting on. There's a beautiful shift that happens when someone realizes they don't have to perform strength around you. It's a kind of emotional exhale, and it doesn't come from asking big, deep questions. It comes from consistently showing up in small, human ways. Your absence, letting them know that you're not just listening to what they say, but also to what they don't. That you're not waiting for a dramatic cry for help to care. That you care because you value their presence, their energy, their well-being, not just their performance. So often, the people who need the most support are the ones who say the least. They don't want to make a scene. They don't want to seem weak, but they hope that someone might notice, not with pressure or pity, but with genuine presence. And that kind of presence, offered consistently, can be the thing that makes them feel less alone in whatever they're carrying. Just because someone is functioning, showing up to work, maintaining friendships, staying productive, doesn't mean they're okay. In fact, high-functioning people can often be the ones carrying the deepest pain. They've trained themselves to keep moving, to avoid breaking down, to keep everything looking polished from the outside. But beneath the surface, they may be exhausted, overwhelmed, and emotionally drained. The outside doesn't always match the inside, and assuming it does can make us blind to someone's quiet suffering. The world often praises people who seem unshakable, the ones who always meet deadlines, always check in on others, always smile at the right time. These people get labeled as strong, reliable, resilient, but sometimes what looks like strength is just someone who's mastered the art of survival. They're coping by staying busy. They're managing by keeping things in order. They're afraid that if they slow down or let the cracks show, everything might fall apart, including themselves. The truth is, high-functioning pain is still pain. It doesn't matter how productive someone is, how many jokes they make, or how composed they appear in meetings. If they're going home and collapsing in private, if they're constantly feeling like they can't stop or rest or be honest without disappointing someone, then they're suffering. The difference is they're doing it silently, and the silence can be isolating. These people rarely ask for help, not because they don't need it, but because they don't know how. They've gotten used to being the one others depend on. They might even feel guilty admitting they're not okay. There's a pressure to maintain the image, the capable one, the stable one, the strong one, and the more others rely on them, the more they push their own needs aside. It becomes a cycle, one that's hard to break without someone noticing and reaching in. If we only look for pain in its loudest forms, crying, panic, breakdowns, we're going to miss a lot of people who are struggling. We have to learn to see beyond the surface. That friend who always says, "I've just been busy." They might be distracting themselves from what they don't want to feel. That colleague who never takes a day off. They might be afraid of what would happen if they slowed down. That partner who never talks about their needs. They might have learned that their needs are an inconvenience. To support people who are high functioning but hurting, we have to shift our mindset. Don't just check in when someone shows signs of struggle. Check in because you care. Make it normal to talk about how we're really doing, not just how we're performing. And if someone close to you always seems fine, don't assume they don't need support. Sometimes the best thing you can do is remind them they're allowed to lean, they're allowed to rest, and they don't have to earn love by being strong all the time. Often, these are the people who are there for everyone else. But when it comes to their own pain, they don't feel like there's space for it. They may even downplay their struggles, comparing themselves to others and saying, "It's not that bad," or "Other people have it worse." But pain doesn't have to be catastrophic to be valid. It just has to be felt. And if it's being felt in silence, it matters. You can make a difference simply by seeing them, by asking how they're really feeling, not just how things are going, by reminding them that their worth isn't in how much they do, but in who they are. When someone feels safe enough to admit they're not okay, and they don't lose your love or respect in the process, that moment can be incredibly healing. It tells them they don't have to carry everything alone. Sometimes, when someone we care about is clearly going through something, our first instinct is to help by fixing it. We jump into problem-solving mode. We offer advice, suggestions, silver linings. We want to take their pain away because watching someone we love struggle is uncomfortable. It makes us feel powerless, and we want to feel useful. But the truth is, the most powerful thing you can offer someone who's silently breaking is not your advice, but your presence. When someone is hurting, they're not always looking for solutions. In fact, offering solutions too quickly can sometimes feel dismissive. It sends the message, even if unintentionally, that their feelings are a problem to be solved rather than an experience to be understood. People don't want to feel like a burden, and when we rush to fix, it can make them feel like they're not being heard, that their pain is something that needs to be wrapped up quickly and moved past. Emotional pain often needs space to exist before it can start to heal. It needs to be seen, acknowledged, and allowed to breathe. When someone is acting like they're fine but they're not, what they often need most is someone who will simply sit with them, without expectations, without pressure, without trying to make it go away. Someone who doesn't need them to be okay, to still want to be around them. That's what emotional safety looks like. We underestimate how healing it is just to be with someone who can hold space. Holding space doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing something incredibly rarer, being fully present without trying to control the outcome. It's sitting in silence without needing to fill it. It's listening without interrupting. It's being comfortable enough with your own discomfort that you don't make someone else's pain about you. This kind of presence can feel like a lifeline. It tells the other person, you don't have to hide here. You don't have to pretend. And for someone who's used to putting on a brave face, who's used to carrying the weight alone, that kind of presence is a gift. It lets them drop the mask, even for a moment, and just be. Sometimes we're afraid that if we don't say the right thing, we'll make it worse. But the truth is, there's no perfect thing to say when someone's heart is heavy. What matters far more than words is the energy you bring. Are you showing up without judgment? Are you being patient? Are you letting them be seen without rushing them through it? That's what people remember. Not what you said, but how safe they felt with you. It's easy to be there for someone when they're happy, fun, light. But real connection shows up in the dark moments. When you can sit with someone and allow them to not have it all together, to be messy, confused, emotional. That's where real trust is built. It's not your job to heal them, but it is powerful to be someone who doesn't flinch at their pain, who doesn't back away when things get hard. We all crave spaces where we don't have to perform, where we can be loved in our unfiltered state. And sometimes, the most healing thing in the world is to have someone look at us, in our mess, in our silence, in our sadness, and still choose to stay, still choose to care, still choose to listen. Because that presence, that stillness, that quiet form of love, it speaks louder than any advice ever could. We all wear armor, not the kind you can see, but emotional armor, sarcasm, perfectionism, distraction, detachment. It's what we use to protect ourselves from judgment, rejection, or getting hurt again. Most of us don't even realize we're wearing it until we meet someone who makes us feel safe enough to take it off. That safety isn't built by accident. It's created by people who show up with consistency, empathy, and patience, not pressure. Vulnerability doesn't come naturally to most people. For many, it's something they've learned to hide. Maybe they opened up once and were told they were too much. Maybe they were laughed at, ignored, or dismissed. Maybe their pain made others uncomfortable, so they learned to package it neatly or keep it to themselves altogether. Over time, that becomes a habit. Keep it light, keep it controlled, keep it in. When someone chooses to share a part of themselves that's raw or real, it's not because you asked the right question or said the magic words. It's because you became a person who felt emotionally safe. Emotional safety isn't about agreeing with everything someone says. It's not about solving their problems or knowing exactly what to do. It's about creating an environment where someone doesn't feel judged, rushed, or made to feel like a burden. It's about being steady, not perfect, just steady. We live in a world where people often feel like they have to earn the right to be heard, that they need to shrink their feelings or package them nicely to avoid overwhelming others. So when you create space for someone to be completely honest without fear of being rejected or shamed, it feels like a relief. It feels rare. That's when people start to open up. Not because they're being pulled to, but because they finally don't have to pretend. You can't force someone to be vulnerable. You can't make them open up before they're ready. What you can do is show them, in small ways, that it's okay to be real, that their mess doesn't scare you, that you won't change the way you see them just because they let you see the parts they usually hide. That kind of emotional grounding tells them, you're safe here, even when you're not strong. This applies to every kind of relationship, romantic, friendship, family, even work. People don't respond to pressure. They respond to presence. If someone feels like there's a timer on their honesty or that their emotions are inconvenient, they'll shut down. But if they feel like there's room for them to be fully human around you, they'll naturally let the armor drop. And here's the thing, this isn't just about helping others feel safe. It's about connection. The kind that's real and lasting. Because when someone opens up around you, you're not just getting their story, you're getting their trust. You're being invited into the parts of their life that most people never see. That is something sacred, and it doesn't happen often. So when it does, honor it. Being the kind of person who creates emotional safety doesn't require you to be a therapist or always have the right words. It just means showing up without trying to control the pace of someone's healing or the shape of their story. It means offering calm instead of control, curiosity instead of conclusions, and compassion instead of critique. Everyone wears armor until they don't have to. And when you become a person who doesn't require someone to be okay for you to stay close, you become the exception in a world full of conditions. That's the moment people start to believe that maybe, just maybe, they can stop pretending and finally just be. There's a unique kind of power in sharing your own story, not the polished version, not the highlight reel, but the raw, unfiltered truth of what you've been through. Most people walk around thinking they're alone in their struggle. They think everyone else has it figured out, everyone else is coping better, everyone else is stronger, so they stay quiet. They suppress, they isolate, and then someone opens up, and it changes everything. We often underestimate how much our own vulnerability can impact others. We think, who would care what I've been through? Or, my story isn't dramatic enough. But it's not about having the most painful experience. It's about being real. When you speak honestly about your own doubts, fears, heartbreaks, or moments where you felt lost, what you're really saying is, me too. You're not weird for feeling that way. You're not broken. You're human. People don't open up to perfection. They open up to permission. When you let someone see that you've struggled too, it gives them permission to stop pretending. It lowers the wall. It tells them they don't have to impress you or protect you or perform strength for you. They can just be. And sometimes, that's all someone needs in order to finally exhale and speak their own truth. We've been conditioned to believe that being strong means keeping it together at all times. But real strength is being able to say, this is what I've been through, and I'm still standing. Not because you have all the answers now, but because you chose to keep going. That kind of honesty resonates. It cuts through the noise of social masks and curated personas and reaches people on a level that most conversations never touch. It's easy to think that opening up makes you look weak or overly emotional. But more often than not, people respect and connect with honesty far more than they ever will with a perfect image. The truth is, your cracks don't make you any less valuable. They make you relatable. They make you real. And being real is what builds trust. Some of the most powerful moments of connection happen in the quiet confessions. When someone says, I've felt that too, or I went through something like that. Not to make it about them, but to make you feel less alone. That kind of sharing doesn't steal the spotlight. It creates space. It turns isolation into understanding. And for someone who's been silently breaking, that kind of moment can be the beginning of healing. This doesn't mean you have to tell your story to everyone all the time. It's about discernment. It's about being open when the moment is right. When you know someone needs to hear that they're not the only one who's felt this way. Sometimes, a single sentence about your own struggle can open a door that someone else has been too afraid to even approach. You don't need to have overcome everything to speak with impact. People don't connect with victory laps. They connect with the process, the mess, the in-between. They connect with hearing that someone else sat in the dark and still made it through the night. Your story, even in its unfinished form, can be someone else's hope. You never know who's watching you, who's listening, who's silently relating to what you're too scared to say. And when you choose to speak up, not to be dramatic, not to gain attention, but to be real, you might be giving someone else the courage to do the same. You might be the first person who made them feel like they weren't alone. And sometimes, that's all it takes to help someone stop acting fine and start feeling seen. The truth is, we're all carrying something. Some people wear it on their sleeves. Others hide it behind a smile, behind achievement, behind humor, behind silence. And the ones who seem the most together, they're often the ones who are the most afraid to fall apart. Because they don't believe anyone will catch them. But connection isn't built through perfection. It's built through presence. It's built when we stop expecting people to always be okay and start creating the kind of space where they don't have to be. You don't have to fix everyone. You don't have to say the perfect thing. You just have to notice. You just have to stay. Because when you see someone who's acting fine, but breaking inside, and you choose to reach in with empathy instead of assumptions, with stillness instead of solutions, with love instead of pressure egg, that's when something powerful happens. They finally feel safe enough to stop pretending. And that might be the most healing gift you ever give someone.